The room was silent except for the faint hum of the city, 30 floors below. A glass-walled boardroom in Manhattan, flooded with white light, waited for one signature to seal a billion-dollar deal. The Millionaire CEO sat at the head of the table, pen poised, jaw tight. Everyone believed this moment was inevitable. Then a voice broke the silence. Soft, urgent, too close. Don't sign this deal. He turned, startled, to see the cleaning lady standing beside him, her cart still dripping from freshly mopped floors. Her eyes weren't begging, they were warning. She leaned in just enough to whisper again, her breath shaking. They're trapping you. The danger isn't in the numbers. It's in what happens after. The pen stopped midair. Around them, powerful executives froze, confused, offended, amused. Security shifted. Someone laughed under their breath. To them, she was invisible, disposable. But inside the CEO's chest, something cracked. Because what she whispered echoed a fear he had never spoken aloud. A doubt that had kept him awake for weeks. A doubt no one in that room should have known. He slowly lowered the pen. And in that single pause, a deal worth billions began to unravel. Along with secrets powerful people were willing to destroy lives to keep buried. Before we continue, comment below with your city and the local time where you're listening from. I'd love to know how far this story travels. If you enjoy deep drama, slow burn romance, and powerful moral twists, don't forget to subscribe. And one more thing, grab your favorite drink and take a sip. This story is best enjoyed slowly. The pause felt longer than it was. In reality, only a few seconds passed between the moment the CEO lowered his pen and the moment the room began to breathe again. But in those seconds, power shifted, subtly, invisibly, like a fault line giving way beneath polished marble floors. The CEO leaned back in his chair, fingers still wrapped around the pen, and scanned the faces around the table. 12 executives, 3 attorneys, 2 board members joining remotely on a wall-sized screen. Every expression was carefully neutral, yet beneath the calm, he sensed irritation sharpening into something colder. He had been here before. Rooms like this, moments like this. He knew the choreography, the confident smiles, the pressure disguised as reassurance. Is there a problem? The CFO asked smoothly, folding his hands as if this were a mild scheduling hiccup rather than a billion-dollar cliff edge. The CEO didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted instead to the woman standing beside the table, the cleaning lady. Up close, she looked younger than he had first assumed. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Her uniform hung slightly loose, the fabric faded from too many washes. A name badge clipped crookedly to her chest bore a first name that didn't belong in this room. Not because it was unworthy, but because this room had been designed to exclude people like her. She stood stiffly, hands gripping the handle of her cleaning cart, as if it were the only solid thing in the world. Security hovered near the doors, waiting for a nod. The CEO cleared his throat. "We'll take 10 minutes." A ripple of confusion ran through the room. 10 minutes? One of the attorneys repeated, blinking. "Everything is ready." "I said 10 minutes, the CEO replied, calm but unmistakably firm. "Please." The CFO's smile tightened. "There's no reason to delay. Markets are watching. Any hesitation could—" 10 minutes, the CEO repeated, his voice lower now. Silence fell again, heavier this time. Reluctantly, chairs scraped back. Phones came out. The attorneys gathered their folders with forced politeness. One by one, the room emptied, leaving behind only the CEO, the cleaning lady, and the faint scent of lemon disinfectant. When the door closed, the CEO exhaled slowly. "Sit," he said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs. Her eyes widened. I can't, I'm working." "This is work now," he replied. "Please." She hesitated, then perched on the edge of the chair, posture rigid, ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. "What's your name?" he asked. She gave it quietly. "And how long have you been cleaning this floor?" he continued. "Almost a year. Have you ever interrupted a meeting before?" Her lips pressed together. "No." "Then why tonight?" She swallowed. The question opened a door she had spent years keeping shut. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, she said quickly. I know how it looked. I know people like me aren't supposed to speak in rooms like that, but I heard something and I recognized it. Recognized what? He asked. The setup, she said, the confidence. The way they kept saying the deal was safe. That word. A bitter smile flickered across her face. That's the word they used on me. The CEO leaned forward. Explain. She took a breath, steadying herself. A few years ago, I worked for a small logistics company. Not glamorous, but it paid enough. The owner signed a contract with a bigger partner. Everyone said it was a win. Growth, stability. Her hands tightened in her lap. 6 months later, the penalties kicked in. Targets that were impossible to meet. Fees buried in clauses nobody talked about. And the company collapsed, the CEO said softly. She nodded. People lost jobs, homes, families broke apart. Her voice wavered. I did too. He watched her closely, not with pity, but with a growing unease. What did you hear tonight? He asked. She leaned forward now, urgency overcoming fear. One of the executives, tall, gray hair, he joked about the earn-out adjustment like it was a bonus. He said, once they miss the benchmarks, it's basically free. The CEO's jaw tightened. That phrase. He had flagged it weeks ago, asked questions, been reassured, over and over. They told me the benchmarks were conservative, he said. That's what they said to us, she replied. They always say that. He stood and began pacing, running a hand through his hair. The room suddenly felt smaller. If you're wrong, he said, more to himself than to her, I look like a fool. If you're right... He didn't finish the sentence. She rose from her chair, panic flashing across her face. I don't want anything. I'm not trying to get money or attention. I couldn't watch it happen again. Not to someone else. He stopped pacing and looked at her. For the first time, he really looked. The exhaustion in her eyes wasn't from one bad night. It was layered, years deep. The kind that came from carrying responsibility without resources, from knowing that one wrong signature could destroy everything, and that nobody would care because the numbers said it was legal. What's your schedule tonight? He asked suddenly. Another floor after this, she answered automatically. Cancel it. I can't afford... I'll pay for the hours, he said, cutting her off. Out of my pocket. Her pride flared. I need you, he corrected gently, to explain exactly what you heard, and anything else you noticed. She hesitated, then nodded. He pressed a button on his phone. Get me an independent attorney. Someone who's never touched this deal. Now. When he hung up, he noticed her staring at his hands. What? He asked. She shook her head. Nothing, just you don't act like them. Like who? Like people who assume they're always right, she said. The words hit harder than she intended. He gave a short, humorless laugh. That might be the nicest insult I've had all year. A vibration buzzed in his pocket. A text from an unknown number. If you don't sign tonight, your company dies. He stared at the screen, pulse quickening. She noticed the change in his face. What is it? Pressure, he said. The kind that doesn't come from nowhere. Her shoulders sagged. I knew it. He looked up. Knew what? That they wouldn't let you walk away quietly. A knock sounded at the door. His assistant peeked in. They're asking how long you'll need. He straightened. Tell them we're still reviewing. When the door closed again, he turned back to the cleaning lady. What you did tonight, he said carefully, could cost you your job. She met his gaze, steady now. I know. Why risk that? She thought of her child asleep in a small apartment, of eviction notices, of the contract that had ruined her life because she trusted people who spoke with confidence and power. Because sometimes, she said, staying quiet costs more. The CEO felt something shift inside him. Not admiration, not attraction, but recognition. He had spent his life believing power meant protection. Tonight, a woman with nothing but a mop and a memory had shown him how fragile that belief really was. By the time the independent attorney arrived, the building had grown quieter. Midnight pressed against the windows, Manhattan reduced to scattered lights and distant sirens. The boardroom no longer felt like a place of triumph. It felt like a waiting room before bad news. The CEO stood at the head of the table again, but this time the documents remained untouched. Across from him, the cleaning lady sat with her hands folded, eyes following every movement as if she were bracing for impact. The attorney, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and no patience for corporate theater, listened without interruption as the CEO explained the situation. He did not embellish. He did not minimize the source of the warning. When he finished, the attorney turned to the cleaning lady. "Tell me exactly what you heard, word for word." She closed her eyes for a moment, replaying the memory. "One of them said the deal would self-correct after the first year," she began. He joked that by then, the buyer would be locked in, too deep to fight back. Another one laughed and said the adjustment clause would do the rest. The attorney's pen paused mid-note. "Adjustment clause," she repeated. "Yes," the cleaning lady said quickly. "He said it like it was nothing, like it was automatic." The attorney flipped through the document, scanning rapidly. Minutes passed. The CEO watched her face harden, inch by inch. "Here it is," she said, finally tapping the page. "Buried in the earnout section. If projected growth targets aren't met, targets defined by the seller, the buyer absorbs operational penalties, and the seller retains control over the metrics." The room seemed to tilt. "That means they can force a miss," the CEO said slowly. "And then drain you dry," the attorney replied. "Legally." The cleaning lady's shoulders slumped. "That's what they did to us." The CEO felt heat rise in his chest. Not just anger, but something closer to shame. He had questioned this clause once, only once. And when reassured by expensive voices in tailored suits, he had let it go. He looked at the cleaning lady. "Why didn't you say something sooner? Before tonight?" She met his gaze without flinching. "Because nobody listens until the knife is already in the air." The attorney closed the folder. "If you sign this, you won't feel the damage immediately. It'll come quietly, then all at once." A sharp knock interrupted them. The CFO entered without waiting for permission. Smile fixed, eyes flicking briefly toward the cleaning lady before returning to the CEO. "Markets are getting nervous," he said. "We've delayed long enough." The CEO held his ground. "We're reviewing." The CFO's smile thinned. "With respect, this deal has been reviewed extensively by people qualified to do so." The unspoken words hung heavy in the air. The cleaning lady shifted in her seat, color rising in her cheeks. The CEO felt it then, how easy it would be to end this discomfort, to apologize, to dismiss her as a misunderstanding, to sign and let the consequences fall somewhere else. Instead, he said, "I won't sign tonight." The CFO's eyes hardened. "Do you understand what that means?" "Yes," the CEO replied. "It means I'm choosing not to be robbed politely." Silence. The CFO laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," the CEO said, "but it'll be my mistake." As the CFO turned to leave, he paused at the door. "Just remember," he said softly, "not everyone survives standing in the wrong place." The threat was subtle, effective. When he was gone, the cleaning lady let out a shaky breath. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to put you in danger." The CEO shook his head. "You didn't. You revealed it." His phone buzzed again. Another message. "No sender. You're protecting the wrong person." He locked the screen, jaw tight. "What happens now?" the cleaning lady asked. "Now," he said, "they'll try to make me doubt you." As if on cue, alerts began lighting up his phone. Emails, messages, headlines, information. CEO delays major deal amid security concerns. Sources question judgment after unauthorized staff access boardroom. Her breath caught. "They're talking about me." "Yes," he said quietly. "And they want me to sacrifice you to calm the noise." Her first instinct was to stand, to leave, before she became collateral damage. But then she stopped. Years ago, she had stayed quiet, trusted the process, believed powerful people would do the right thing without being forced. She had paid for that silence every day since. "If you need to fire me," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, "I'll understand." The CEO looked at her for a long moment. "No," he said. "If they want a scapegoat, they'll have to look somewhere else." The words surprised them both. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that a single pause, one whispered warning, had set something irreversible in motion. For the first time that night, The cleaning lady felt something unfamiliar rise beneath her fear. Not hope, but resolve. At this point in the story, everything hinges on a question society rarely asks out loud. Who deserves to be believed? The CEO had access to the best lawyers, the best analysts, the best education money could buy. And yet, the most accurate warning came from someone whose job required her to stay invisible. Should credibility come from credentials or from lived experience? Many would argue that trusting a cleaning lady over a boardroom full of experts is reckless. Others would say dismissing her is the true risk, rooted not in logic but in class bias. If power decides whose voice matters, then truth becomes negotiable. There's another question, just as uncomfortable. Once the CEO chose to listen, did he become responsible for her safety? Or was she already at risk the moment she spoke up? In a system where whistleblowers often pay the highest price, is silence self-preservation or complicity? Think about your own life. How many warnings have you ignored because they came from the wrong person? How many times have you stayed quiet because speaking up felt too expensive? Tell me what you think in the comments. Was the CEO right to stop the deal based on her warning? And would you have had the courage to whisper the truth, knowing what it might cost? Your answer says more about the world we want than the one we live in. By morning, the story had a shape, and it was not a flattering one. The CEO woke to his phone vibrating nonstop on the nightstand. Messages stacked faster than he could read them. Market alerts, missed calls. A calendar reminder for an emergency board session, scheduled without his approval. He sat up slowly, the events of the night replaying in fragments. The whisper, the clause, the threat disguised as a warning. For a brief, dangerous moment, he wondered if this was what they wanted, to exhaust him until signing felt like relief. Across the city, the cleaning lady woke with a different weight pressing on her chest. She had barely slept. Every creak of the apartment made her flinch. When she rose to check the door, she noticed it immediately. The folder was gone. The thin, battered folder she kept tucked behind the cereal boxes in her kitchen cabinet. The one filled with old paperwork she couldn't bring herself to throw away. Contracts, letters, notes scribbled in the margins when she still believed understanding the language might save her. She stood frozen, heart pounding. Nothing else had been touched. No electronics, no cash, just the folder. Her phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number. She didn't answer. Across town, the CEO entered the office to find his assistant pale and tight-lipped. "They moved the meeting up," she said quietly. 10 minutes. Full board. "Of course they did," he replied. As he walked toward the boardroom, he noticed something else. Security presence had doubled. Faces he didn't recognize. The building felt less like a workplace and more like a checkpoint. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere had shifted. Gone were the easy smiles. In their place sat restrained irritation and a thinly veiled hunger for control. The CFO opened without preamble. "Your actions last night triggered concern among our investors," he said. "Delaying the deal based on information from unauthorized staff creates liability." The CEO took his seat. "The liability comes from signing a predatory contract." A murmur rippled around the table. "We have legal opinions," a board member said. "Extensive ones." "So do I now," the CEO replied evenly. "Independent. Unconnected to this board." The CFO's gaze sharpened. "Are you accusing us of wrongdoing?" "I'm accusing this deal of being dangerous," the CEO said. "And I'm accusing this board of prioritizing speed over scrutiny." Silence followed. Then came the pivot. "We're concerned about optics," another board member said. "The press is already spinning this as instability. Investors don't like uncertainty." The CEO leaned back. "Neither do employees facing layoffs if this deal collapses." "That's exactly why we need to sign," the CFO shot back. "To protect jobs." The irony burned. "By mortgaging the company's future?" the CEO asked. "By allowing performance targets to be manipulated by the seller?" A pause, then softly. "We're also concerned about the employee who disrupted the meeting," the CFO said. "Her presence raises serious security questions." There it was. The CEO felt the trap close in. "She was doing her job," he said, "cleaning." and somehow had access to confidential information, the CFO pressed. That's a problem. The CEO understood the subtext perfectly. Give us the scapegoat, and this all goes away. He pictured her hands gripping the cart, the way she'd said staying quiet costs more. No, he said simply, it's not. The temperature in the room dropped. We can vote to override your authority, the CFO said calmly. As CEO. The words landed like a blade. You can try, the CEO replied, but not without consequences. Across the city, the cleaning lady sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the empty space where the folder had been. The phone buzzed again. This time she answered. Stop interfering, a woman's voice said, cool, controlled. You've already done enough damage. Who is this? She demanded. You don't need to know, the voice replied. You just need to remember your place. Her hands shook. You broke into my apartment. We protected our interests, the woman corrected, and we can protect them again. The call ended. She sat there long after, the silence roaring in her ears. At the office, the CEO ended the board meeting without resolution. Lines had been drawn. No one pretended otherwise. Back in his office, he called the independent attorney. They took documents from her apartment, he said quietly. A pause, then, that confirms intent, the attorney replied. They're scared. Can we protect her? He asked. Yes, the attorney said, but she'll need to agree. Once this escalates, there's no half in. He stared out the window, watching traffic crawl miles below. She didn't ask for this. No, the attorney said, but she may be the only one who can finish it. That afternoon, he went to see her. Not with security, not with a driver, just him. She opened the door cautiously, eyes wary. When she saw him, surprise flickered across her face, followed by something like anger. They took my things, she said before he could speak. Everything that proved I wasn't crazy. I know, he replied. I'm sorry. She stepped aside to let him in. The apartment was small but meticulously clean. A child's backpack rested by the door. Crayon drawings taped to the fridge. This is my life, she said quietly. It's fragile. I can't afford games. I'm not here to play one, he said. I'm here to tell you the truth. She crossed her arms. Which is? They're preparing to remove me, he said, and they're trying to isolate you. Her breath hitched. Then why are you still here? Because I won't let them erase you to save themselves. She studied him, searching for the familiar signs. Condescension, savior instincts, pity. She found none. What do you want from me? She asked. Consent, he replied, to protect you, to make sure what happened to you doesn't happen again. To anyone. And if I say no, then I'll still fight, he said, just without asking you to carry more than you already have. She looked toward the room where her child slept. All her life decisions had been made about her, rarely with her. They already crossed the line, she said finally. Breaking into my home, threatening my family? Her voice hardened. I'm done being quiet. He nodded. Then we do this carefully. That evening, arrangements were made. Temporary housing, legal protection. A phone that couldn't be traced. Not luxury, safety. As he left, she stopped him at the door. You know they'll come for you harder now, she said. He met her gaze. They already have. For the first time since the night before, she allowed herself to believe one thing. This time, the silence wouldn't win. The safe apartment was quiet in a way her old place had never been. No sirens slicing through the night, no neighbors arguing through thin walls, just a low hum from the refrigerator and the distant rhythm of traffic somewhere far below. The cleaning lady sat at the small dining table, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched, staring at nothing. Across from her, the CEO stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. No, he said calmly. I'm not stepping aside. And if the board thinks intimidation will move me, they're misreading the situation. He listened, jaw tightening. Yes, I'm aware of the stock movement. A pause. I'm also aware of my fiduciary duty, which includes not signing a deal designed to bleed this company dry. He ended the call and exhaled slowly. They're leaking again, he said, turning to her. Anonymous sources, claims that I'm being emotionally manipulated. She let out a hollow laugh. Of course they are. They're framing you as unstable, he continued. A grifter looking for attention or a payout. Her fingers tightened around the mug. That's easier than admitting they're wrong. Exactly. For a moment, neither spoke. The CEO noticed details he hadn't before. The way she sat slightly angled toward the hallway where her child slept, as if always ready to protect. The faint chemical scars on her hands, the discipline in her posture, earned from years of being expected to disappear. "This wasn't supposed to be your fight," he said quietly. She looked up. "It was my fight the moment they broke into my home." Silence settled again, heavier but steadier. Later that night, after confirming her child was asleep, she pulled a chair closer to the table. "There's something else," she said, "something I didn't tell you." He sat across from her. "I'm listening." "The contract that destroyed my old company," she said slowly, "was reviewed by a law firm connected to one of your board members. I didn't realize it at the time. I only saw the name again last night." His stomach dropped. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I recognize the formatting, the language. It's distinct." "That means this isn't coincidence," he said. "No," she replied. "It's a pattern." The realization reframed everything. This wasn't opportunism. It was infrastructure. A system refined over years, maybe decades, designed to harvest companies and discard the people crushed in the process. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was his assistant. "They're planning an emergency vote tomorrow," she said quietly, "to install an interim CEO." "When?" he asked. 8 a.m. He checked the clock. Barely 6 hours away. "They're trying to lock you out," the cleaning lady said. "Yes," he replied, "before I can expose them." Her heart pounded. "What happens if they succeed?" "Then I lose my position," he said, "but not necessarily my voice." She studied him carefully. "And me?" He met her gaze. "Then, they'll try to discredit you completely, make you disappear." Fear flickered across her face, quickly replaced by resolve. "They already tried," she said. "It didn't work." He felt something shift between them. Not romance, not yet, but trust forged under pressure. Early the next morning, the news cycle turned brutal. Headlines screamed uncertainty. Pundits speculated about the CEO's erratic leadership. Anonymous insiders suggested mental fatigue. The cleaning lady's image, blurred but recognizable, circulated online, paired with cruel jokes and assumptions. She didn't look. She couldn't. But her phone vibrated constantly. Support messages, too, from people who recognized the story, who had lived it. At the office, the board meeting began without her, or the CEO's presence. They didn't need him there to remove him. The vote passed narrowly. By the time he arrived, escorted by his assistant, the decision had already been made. Effective immediately, the CFO announced, the board has appointed interim leadership. The CEO stood still, absorbing the moment. "This is retaliation," he said calmly. "This is governance," the CFO replied. "You created risk." "No," the CEO said. "I exposed it." Security shifted closer. The CEO raised a hand. "I'll leave." As he turned, he caught the CFO's eye. "This doesn't end the way you think it does," he said quietly. The CFO smiled. "It never does." Across the city, the cleaning lady watched the announcement on a muted TV, her child eating cereal beside her. "Is that your friend?" the child asked. She hesitated. "Yes," she said. "He's trying to do the right thing." The child nodded solemnly. "That's hard." She smiled faintly. "Yes, it is." Her phone rang. The CEO's number. "They did it," he said. "I'm out. For now." She swallowed. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he replied. "This is where the truth gets louder." By afternoon, a new threat arrived. An email sent to her encrypted phone. "We know where your child goes to school." Her blood ran cold. She called the CEO immediately. "They crossed another line," she said, voice shaking despite herself. There was a pause on the other end, then Steele. "Pack a bag," he said. "We're moving you again." "But the legal team can wait," he replied. "Your safety can't." As arrangements were made, she finally let herself break. Just a little. In the bathroom, with the door locked, she pressed her hand to her mouth and cried silently. Not from fear alone, from rage. From the realization that people with power felt entitled to her child's peace. When she emerged, the CEO was waiting. "I should never have brought you into this," he said. She shook her head. You didn't. They did. He nodded. That night, as they sat in the car heading to another undisclosed location, she looked out at the passing lights. I used to think justice was loud, she said, courtrooms, headlines. And now? He asked. Now I think it's quieter, she replied. Stubborn, relentless. He smiled faintly. I'm glad you're stubborn. She met his gaze briefly. For the first time, there was something else there. Not gratitude, respect. And the fragile beginning of something neither of them was ready to name. The second safe location felt even more temporary than the first. A modest townhouse on the edge of the city, rented under a shell company name, with neutral furniture and windows that never quite let in enough light. It was clean, quiet, and anonymous, designed to leave no emotional footprint. The cleaning lady sat on the edge of the couch, watching her child color on the floor with crayons, provided by someone she had never met. Every few minutes, her eyes flicked to the door, then the windows, then back to her child. Hypervigilance had become instinct. The CEO stood in the kitchen, speaking in low tones, with the independent attorney over speakerphone. They're escalating, the attorney said. Threats involving a minor move this into criminal territory. That doesn't stop them, the CEO replied. It just means they're desperate. They're also preparing a counter-narrative, the attorney continued, painting her as unstable. They'll argue she's fabricating threats to stay relevant. The cleaning lady closed her eyes. That's exactly what they did last time, she murmured, when my old company collapsed. Anyone who questioned it was called emotional, unreliable. The CEO muted the call and turned toward her. We don't have to continue like this, he said carefully. If you want out, I'll make it happen. Protection, relocation, silence, no judgment. She looked at him sharply. You think this ends if I disappear? He hesitated. No, she answered for him. It ends when they can't do this to anyone else. The attorney cleared her throat through the speaker. There's another development, she said. A former paralegal from the law firm tied to the board reached out. Off the record. The CEO's pulse quickened. What do they want? To talk, the attorney said. But they're terrified. Of the board? The cleaning lady asked. Of everyone, the attorney replied. They say they've seen this pattern before. The CEO ended the call and sat across from the cleaning lady. This could change everything, he said. But it's dangerous. For all of us? She nodded slowly. Then we do it right. Later that night, while her child slept upstairs, she finally told him the rest. Not all of it, but enough. The man who reviewed the contract that destroyed my company, she said quietly, was the same one who introduced me to my child's father. The CEO stiffened. You never mentioned that connection. I didn't know it mattered until now, she replied. I thought it was coincidence. He worked in compliance. He talked about ethics like it was a religion. And your child's father? The CEO asked gently. He worked for a nonprofit that helped small businesses navigate contracts, she said. Or so I thought. The realization settled heavily between them. He disappeared right after the company collapsed, she continued. No calls, no explanation. Just gone. The CEO leaned back, absorbing the implications. They don't just destroy companies, he said. They isolate people, break the support systems around them. She nodded. And then they wait. The next morning, the paralegal agreed to meet under strict conditions. A public cafe, cameras everywhere, daylight. The CEO arrived first, scanning the room. When the paralegal entered, their hands were shaking so badly they nearly dropped their coffee. I don't have much time, the paralegal said, sitting down. They're watching me. Who? The CEO asked. The board member you used to trust, the paralegal replied. The one everyone calls clean. The CEO's jaw tightened. They specialize in contracts that look generous up front, the paralegal continued. But the enforcement mechanisms are designed to fail the buyer. It's legal, barely. And when someone pushes back, they swallowed. They get buried. Do you have proof? The cleaning lady asked. The paralegal hesitated. I had files, emails. But after your board delay, my apartment was searched. Unofficially. The cleaning lady's breath caught. They did that to me too. The paralegal's eyes widened. Then you understand. They slid a flash drive across the table. This is all I could save. Metadata, drafts, internal notes. It shows intent. The CEO covered the drive with his hand. Thank you. As the paralegals stood to leave, they paused. Be careful, they said. They don't panic unless they're losing. By afternoon, the board made its next move. A press release announced that the company would proceed with the acquisition, without the CEO's involvement, under interim leadership. The CEO read it twice, then handed the phone to the cleaning lady. They're trying to close it fast, she said, before this comes out. Yes, he replied. And if they succeed, they'll bury the evidence in arbitration. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You should have stayed quiet. She showed it to him. They're telling the truth, she said bitterly. About one thing. What's that? He asked. That speaking up is expensive. The CEO looked at her child's drawing taped to the wall. Stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun. Then let's make it worth the cost, he said. That night they made the decision. They wouldn't go to the press yet. Too easy to discredit, too easy to spin. They would go somewhere harder to silence. A federal regulator and an investigative journalist known for patience, not spectacle. As plans formed, something else surfaced. Quietly, unexpectedly. Trust. Not the performative kind. The kind built when two people choose the same hard path for different reasons. When the CEO finally lay down to sleep, he realized something unsettling. For the first time since he'd built his company, he wasn't afraid of losing it. He was afraid of failing her. And she, lying awake in the next room, realized something just as dangerous. For the first time since everything fell apart years ago, she wasn't facing this alone. At this stage, the story asks a harder question than whether corruption exists. It asks who pays the price for exposing it. The cleaning lady never sought power. She sought safety. For her child, for herself, for a life that wouldn't collapse under fine print. Yet the moment she spoke, the risks multiplied. Threats, surveillance. Fear that no amount of doing the right thing could erase. So here's the dilemma. When truth endangers the innocent, is silence ever justified? Some would argue that protecting a child must come before any moral crusade. That survival is not cowardice, it's wisdom. Others would say that allowing corruption to continue guarantees more victims, more families broken quietly and legally. There's also the CEO's role. He didn't cause the system, but once he saw it clearly, could he ethically step away? Is awareness itself a form of responsibility? In real life, most injustice doesn't fall because of heroes. It falls because ordinary people refuse to accept the cost of silence. But that cost is never abstract. It's personal. It has names, faces. So ask yourself, if telling the truth put your family at risk, would you still speak? And if you had power, would you use it to shield the vulnerable or to protect yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments. There are no easy answers, only honest ones. The first rule of power, the cleaning lady had learned, was that it hated daylight. By the time the investigative journalist responded, the board had already begun moving pieces across the board with practiced precision. The interim CEO appeared on morning shows, smiling, reassuring markets that stability had been restored. Analysts echoed the phrase until it became truth by repetition. Inside the townhouse, the CEO watched the coverage with muted sound. They're setting the narrative, he said. Calm, competent, reasonable, and painting you as emotional, the cleaning lady replied. Yes, her phone buzzed. A news alert flashed. Company moves forward with strategic acquisition, despite leadership turmoil. They're accelerating, she said. The CEO nodded, which means they're scared. The journalist agreed to meet that afternoon, but not at their office. A public library branch, busy enough to blend in, quiet enough to talk. When they arrived, the journalist, an older man with tired eyes and an unassuming demeanor, listened without interrupting as the CEO explained the pattern, the contracts, the threats. Then he turned to the cleaning lady. You're the through line, he said, the human cost. She stiffened. I'm not a symbol. I know, he replied gently. You're a witness. The word landed differently. They handed over copies of the files. Not everything, just enough to establish credibility without burning sources. The journalist nodded slowly. This isn't a one-off, he said. This is systemic, and it explains things I've been tracking for years. Can you protect us? The CEO asked. No, the journalist said honestly. But I can make it harder to erase you. That night, the board made its boldest move yet, a live press conference. The interim CEO stood at the podium, flanked by legal counsel, and announced that the former CEO had been officially suspended pending an internal investigation into ethical breaches. The breach? Allowing unauthorized personnel access to sensitive negotiations. The cleaning lady's stomach dropped. They're using me, she whispered. Yes, the CEO said, and they want me to deny you. The press conference continued. The interim CEO paused dramatically. We take security seriously, and we take employee misconduct seriously. The cleaning lady felt heat rise to her face. Before she could stop herself, she stood. I'm not hiding, she said. I'm done with that. The CEO looked at her sharply. You don't have to do this. I do, she replied. They've been speaking for me long enough. They arrived at the building just as the Q&A began. Security moved to block her, but hesitated when the CEO stepped forward beside her. I'm still a shareholder, he said evenly, and she's my guest. Cameras turned, microphones shifted. The room buzzed. She could feel the weight of it, every assumption pressed onto her skin. The interim CEO stiffened. This is highly inappropriate. She took a breath. I cleaned your offices for almost a year, she said, voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. I heard things people assumed I couldn't understand. I warned him because I recognized a contract designed to fail the buyer. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The interim CEO smiled thinly. With respect, you're not qualified to assess complex financial agreements. She nodded. I'm qualified to recognize patterns, and I'm qualified to remember what destroyed my life. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. I didn't record anyone on purpose, she continued. I was cleaning. My phone was in my pocket, and it caught this. She pressed play. The audio was muffled but unmistakable. A male voice laughed. Once they miss the benchmarks, it's free money. They'll be too deep to fight. Silence fell. The interim CEO's face drained of color. Security surged forward, but reporters were already shouting questions. Who said that? When was this recorded? Is this related to the earnout clause? The CEO stepped in. That recording is being reviewed by federal authorities. The board member everyone called clean shifted uncomfortably. Then something unexpected happened. A woman near the back raised her hand. I worked on a similar deal, she said loudly, and the same firm was involved. Another voice joined. So did I. The room erupted. The cleaning lady stood frozen, heart racing. She hadn't expected allies. Outside, as they were rushed into a waiting car, she finally exhaled. I didn't think anyone would listen, she said. They didn't, the CEO replied, until you made it impossible not to. That night, the journalist's story went live. Not sensational, methodical, backed by documents, testimony, and the audio clip. By morning, regulators announced a formal inquiry. The board scrambled, and deep within the machinery they had built, something began to crack. The fallout was immediate and brutal. By sunrise, the company's stock had plunged. Trading was halted twice before noon. News vans lined the sidewalk outside the headquarters, reporters shouting questions that no one inside was authorized to answer. The board released a statement calling the audio recording misleading and taken out of context, while simultaneously announcing full cooperation with regulators. Inside the temporary townhouse, the CEO watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. They're buying time, he said, hoping momentum fades. They don't understand momentum, the cleaning lady replied quietly. They think silence always comes back. Her phone vibrated. Another unknown number. You embarrassed, powerful people. She deleted it without responding. The independent attorney arrived mid-morning, expression tight. Federal regulators confirmed receipt of the materials. They're moving faster than expected. That's good, the CEO said. And dangerous, the attorney replied. The board is panicking. As if summoned by the word, the interim CEO appeared on television again, this time without the calm smile. We categorically deny any wrongdoing, he said. This is a coordinated attempt to destabilize the company. The cleaning lady laughed once, sharp. They sound scared. They are, the attorney agreed, and scared people make mistakes. The mistake came that afternoon. Security officers arrived at the townhouse with a warrant, not for arrest, for questioning. The CEO stepped forward immediately. She's represented. So am I, the cleaning lady added, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. The officers exchanged looks. We're under instructions to bring her in. The attorney held up a hand. On whose authority? A pause. That's what I thought, the attorney said. You can leave. The officers did, but not before one of them glanced at the child's backpack by the door. The look stayed with her long after they were gone. That evening, the board made its most reckless move yet. They released a dossier, screenshots, old social media posts, financial records twisted just enough to suggest instability. They framed the cleaning lady as a disgruntled former employee with a history of emotional distress and financial irresponsibility. The CEO felt sick as he scrolled. They stole this, she whispered, from my apartment. Yes, he said, and now they've crossed into evidence fabrication. Public opinion wavered, sympathy tangled with suspicion. Commentators debated whether she was a whistleblower or a pawn. She stopped watching. I don't care what they say about me, she said that night. But my child, I know, the CEO said softly. And that's why we end this soon. The attorney laid out the next step. There's a federal hearing scheduled, preliminary but public. If you testify, both of you, it changes everything. Her chest tightened. Public? Yes, the attorney said, under oath, with protection. The CEO looked at her. You don't have to. She looked toward the stairs, where her child slept. They already made my life public, she said. I won't let them control the story, too. The hearing took place 3 days later. A plain room. Flags on the wall, cameras lining the back. She sat at the witness table, hands folded, heart pounding so loudly, she was sure the microphone would catch it. When asked to speak, she didn't raise her voice. She told the truth, about overhearing the deal, about recognizing the pattern, about the break-in, the threats, the fear of losing her child's safety because she spoke up. Then the CEO testified, about pressure from the board, about being urged to sign quickly, about retaliation when he delayed, about the culture of compliance without conscience. The board's attorneys objected repeatedly. The judge overruled them. By the end of the day, something shifted. Not justice yet, but clarity. Outside, cameras flashed. Do you regret speaking up? A reporter shouted. The cleaning lady paused. No, she said. I regret that it took this long. That night, as they returned to the townhouse, exhaustion settled over her like a heavy blanket. She hadn't cried yet. She hadn't allowed herself to. In the quiet kitchen, she finally did. The CEO didn't speak. He didn't try to fix it. He simply stayed. When the tears subsided, she looked at him. I don't want my life to be defined by what they did to me, she said. It won't be, he replied. It'll be defined by what you stopped. Another update broke across the screen. 2 board members had resigned. A third was under investigation for obstruction. The interim CEO's face disappeared from the news cycle entirely. The company announced it was suspending the acquisition pending review. The cleaning lady closed her eyes. For the first time since the whisper, the ground beneath her felt solid. But deep down, she knew this wasn't over. Power didn't vanish quietly. It retreated and waited. The first arrest happened quietly. No flashing lights, no dramatic perp walk, just a line item buried deep in a late-night news update. Federal authorities detained corporate executive in connection with ongoing fraud investigation. The cleaning lady saw it on her phone while packing her child's lunch. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. They took one, she said. The CEO looked up from the counter. They won't stop at one. By mid-morning, the story sharpened. The detained executive wasn't a minor figure. It was the board member everyone had called clean, the one whose reputation had shielded the rest, the one who had smiled calmly through this press conference. He had tried to leave the country the night before. That detail mattered. It means he thought the dam was breaking, the CEO said, and he didn't want to be under it. The independent attorney called minutes later. The paralegal is ready to testify publicly. The cleaning lady's heart skipped. They changed their mind? Yes, the attorney replied. After the arrest. Fear works both ways. The hearing that followed wasn't polished or theatrical. It was procedural, dense, relentless, and devastating. The paralegal laid out emails, drafts, tracked changes, showing how performance targets were manipulated after signatures, how penalties were engineered to trigger, how companies were legally cornered into selling assets at a fraction of their value. Then came the names. Not just one board member, 3, including the CFO. The room shifted. The CFO's attorney requested a recess. It was denied. By afternoon, warrants were issued. The CFO tried one last move. From his office, he authorized the deal anyway, routing signatures through a foreign subsidiary, hoping to lock in the acquisition before regulators could intervene. It almost worked. Almost. The CEO received the call as he stood on the townhouse porch, watching his child, her child, chalk a crooked hopscotch grid onto the pavement. They're pushing it through, the attorney said. We need to act now. How? He asked. By filing an emergency injunction, the attorney replied, and by releasing everything, all of it. The cleaning lady felt the weight of that sentence. All of it meant there was no going back. The CEO looked at her. This is the last turn, he said. Once we do this, it's public forever. She thought of her old apartment, the stolen folder, the threats, the way silence had eaten years of her life. Do it, she said. End it. The injunction hit the federal docket minutes later. So did the final document drop. Emails, audio, testimony. A clear narrative that could no longer be dismissed as emotion or coincidence. Markets reacted violently. The deal was frozen, then voided. The CFO was detained before sunset. That evening, the cleaning lady received a message she had never expected, from a number she hadn't seen in years. I'm sorry it took this long. Her breath caught. She showed the phone to the CEO. It's him, the child's father. They spoke later that night, quietly in the kitchen. I tried to fight it, he said on the call. I thought if I stayed, they'd hurt you. Or worse. Why didn't you tell me, she asked, voice tight. Because they owned my silence, he replied. And I thought leaving was protection. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was truth. And truth, she realized, was enough for now. By the end of the week, the fallout was undeniable. 3 executives arrested, 2 more under formal investigation. The law firm dissolved its compliance division overnight. The company's board was dissolved and reconstituted under federal oversight. And the CEO, no longer interim, no longer suspended, was asked to return. Not as a savior, as a steward. The boardroom looked different when he walked back in. Same glass walls, same skyline, different gravity. He refused the prepared statement. I won't pretend this was a misunderstanding, he said instead. It was a failure of conscience, and we're going to rebuild from there. He paused, then did something no one expected. He named her, not her full name, not her private life, but her role. A worker who spoke up, he said, when it would have been safer not to. Applause filled the room, not thunderous, but sustained. Later, in a quiet hallway, she stood beside him. I don't want a spotlight, she said. I know, he replied. That's why you deserve protection from it. The company announced a restitution fund, funded by seized assets, focused on workers and small businesses harmed by predatory contracts. Not charity, accountability. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. That night, on the townhouse steps, the city finally felt distant again. She sat with a blanket around her shoulders. He sat beside her, close enough to feel warmth, not close enough to assume anything. You never asked me to join your world, she said softly. He looked at her. I didn't want to trap you in another one. She considered that. What if, she said slowly, We build something that belongs to neither of us alone. He smiled, not the polished one, but the tired, honest one. I'd like that, he said. Inside, her child laughed at something on television. Life, still happening, still fragile, still worth protecting. As the city lights flickered on, the cleaning lady realized something profound. Justice hadn't arrived like a storm. It had arrived like a door, finally unlocked. The city felt different in the months that followed. Not because New York had changed, but because the noise around them finally had. The townhouse was gone now. So were the burner phones, the rotating security schedules, the constant sense of being watched. Life didn't snap back into place. It eased, slowly, carefully, like someone testing a floor they weren't sure would hold. The CEO returned to his office without ceremony. No dramatic press conference, no victory tour. The boardroom doors closed behind him one quiet Monday morning, and for a moment, he stood alone at the head of the table. The glass walls reflected a familiar skyline, but the room no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a responsibility. He didn't sit right away. Instead, he walked to the window and looked down at the city, at people heading to jobs that might never know his name, but depended on the decisions made in rooms like this. When the new board filed in, restructured, smaller, under oversight, he spoke plainly. We don't rebuild by pretending this was rare, he said. We rebuild by assuming it isn't. They listened, not because he was powerful, but because power had failed and truth had survived. Across town, the cleaning lady stood in a modest office that still smelled faintly of fresh paint. Her name was on the door now, not in gold lettering, not large, but present. Facilities Compliance Coordinator. It wasn't a miracle promotion. It was a role created to bridge the gap between workers and management, between the invisible and the herd. Training had been offered, tuition covered, flexibility guaranteed. She touched the plaque once, steadying herself. For the first time in years, her workday began without fear. Her child adjusted too. The school route changed. New friends, a counselor who asked questions gently. Nights where homework replaced hypervigilance. One evening as they sat at the kitchen table doing math problems, the child looked up. Are we safe now? The child asked. She paused, then smiled. We're safer, she said. And we're not alone. The truth about the child's father settled into something quieter. They didn't reunite, they didn't erase the past. But they spoke. They co-parented with honesty instead of absence. That too was a kind of justice. Weeks later, the CEO and the cleaning lady sat across from each other again, but not in a boardroom, a cafe. Midday, ordinary. Between them lay a thin stack of papers, a contract. She eyed it skeptically. I'm not signing anything without reading it, he smiled. Good. They read together, every clause, every footnote. Not because they distrusted each other, but because respect had become their shared language. It wasn't romantic in the way movies promised. It was better. It was careful. You don't have to be part of this, he said quietly. Any of it. She met his gaze. Neither do you. They didn't rush. They chose. The restitution fund began distributing payments to small businesses that had been quietly dismantled by predatory contracts. Not life-changing sums for everyone, but enough to stabilize, to acknowledge harm, to say we see you now. Some nights, letters arrived at her office. Thank you for speaking up. I thought I was crazy until I read your story. I lost my job the same way. She didn't answer them all, but she read everyone. At the company's first annual meeting under new governance, the CEO stood again before a crowd, this time of employees. I won't promise perfection, he said. I'll promise process, transparency, and the courage to pause when something feels wrong. He didn't mention her name. He didn't need to. She was there anyway, standing among people who once walked past her without seeing her, now nodding in recognition. Later, as the building emptied, she lingered in the hallway where it had all begun. The floors gleamed. She smiled at the memory. That evening, they walked together through a small park near her new apartment. Streetlights flickered on. Dogs barked. Someone played a saxophone badly and passionately. Ordinary sounds. "Do you ever wish you'd just signed?" she asked, half joking. He thought for a moment. "I wish I'd paused sooner." She nodded. "Me too." They stopped near a bench. "I don't want a story that ends with rescue," she said softly. "I want one that ends with choice." He reached for her hand, not claiming, not saving, offering. "And if the choice is hard?" he asked. She squeezed his fingers. "Then, we read the fine print." They laughed, quietly, honestly. In the months that followed, the headlines faded. Scandals always did. But inside companies across the city, something small shifted. A clause questioned, a meeting paused, a voice invited in. Not enough, but more than before. One afternoon, a junior employee knocked on her office door. "Can I ask you something?" the employee said nervously. She smiled. "You already did." The employee held up a draft contract. "This part feels wrong." She pulled up a chair. "Let's look," she said, and the door stayed open. This story isn't about a billionaire or a boardroom. It's about a moment we all face, when silence feels safer than truth, and speaking up feels too expensive. Power doesn't always announce itself with cruelty. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it reassures, sometimes it tells you to hurry, so you won't notice what you're giving away. And courage doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's a pause. Sometimes it's a tired person saying, "This doesn't feel right." Justice rarely arrives all at once. It comes in pieces, through people willing to read what others skip, to listen when others dismiss, to protect those who risk everything just to be honest. If you've ever felt invisible at work, if you've ever been told your voice didn't belong in the room, if you've ever ignored your instincts because someone powerful told you not to worry, this story is for you. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever trusted a feeling you couldn't fully explain? And were you glad you did? If this story moved you, consider subscribing so we can keep sharing stories that remind us of our worth. And before you go, take a sip of water. Your voice, your courage, and your life are worth taking care of.